Part 1. The attic door that wouldn't stay closed. It started with the wind. Not a storm, not a scream, just the quiet sigh of early autumn pushing against the windows, whispering through the cracks in the old farmhouse like a memory that hadn't quite settled. Anna stood at the foot of the staircase, her hand resting on the carved wooden banister. She hadn't been home in over 12 years, not since the funeral. Not since the silence between her and her mother had grown too wide to cross. Now, the house felt like it had been waiting. She'd returned only because of the letter, the one with no return address, written in her mother's delicate hand. Anna, come home. There's something you should see. But her mother had been dead for nearly a year. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat and climbed the stairs, each creak beneath her feet echoing 100 memories she'd tried to forget. Birthday mornings in pajamas, teenage slamming doors, her father's laughter from the kitchen below. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched dim and still. The attic door, once sealed tight with paint and her mother's rules, now hung open an inch. That door had always stayed closed. Anna approached it slowly. The knob was cool in her palm, oddly comforting. When she pushed it open, a musty warmth met her. Dust, cedar, something floral, long faded. The attic was, as she remembered, boxes stacked like puzzle pieces, old quilts, her father's record player under a sheet, and in the far corner, draped in a garment bag yellowed with age, a wedding dress, her mother's. She stepped closer, heart thudding, fingertips brushing the plastic cover. A tag hung from the zipper, handwritten, not mine. Anna frowned, not hers. Her mother had only been married once, to Anna's father. There were no other names, no secrets, or so she'd thought. She unzipped the bag. The dress inside was ivory silk, simple, sleeveless, nothing like the lace-trimmed gown in her parents' wedding photos. This dress was unfamiliar, untouched. On the floor beneath it was a shoebox, tied shut with twine. Anna hesitated, then opened it. Inside a stack of letters, all addressed in her mother's hand, but not to her father, to someone else. The first envelope bore no name, just a date, 31 years ago. Before Anna was born. She sat on the dusty floor and slid the letter out, hands trembling. I wore the dress for him, not because I married him, but because he asked me to try it on once, just once, when no one else was home, and I said yes. That was the beginning of all the endings. Anna's breath caught. The room was suddenly too small. The wind pushed harder against the attic windows, as if the house itself needed her to keep going, to read every word, to understand what had never been spoken aloud, and something deep in her chest, a truth she hadn't yet named, began to stir. Part 2. The letters she never meant to send. Anna sat motionless on the attic floor, the silence pressing in like dust, soft and suffocating. The letter trembled in her hands. The words on the page didn't belong to the woman she thought she knew. Her mother had always been composed, distant but elegant, her emotions neatly folded and tucked between the lines of polite conversation. Not someone who wore secrets like silk. And yet, here they were. She slid out the next letter, dated only a week after the first. He kissed me once. Under the magnolia tree near the church, the one that blooms late. I don't think I ever stopped standing under that tree in my mind, even after I married your father. Anna's breath hitched. The church on Fairhill Road, the magnolia tree she used to sit under as a child, never knowing why it felt so sacred. She reached for the third letter. This one, dated 6 months later. I chose your father. I thought love could be built. I thought if I worked hard enough, stayed still enough, quiet enough, it would grow. But the truth is, I never told him there was someone before. I buried it like women do with dishes, with dinner, with the soft tucking in of sheets. Anna folded the letter back too carefully, as if the paper might tear under the weight of what it held. So this was the fracture, the invisible thread, that had tugged at the corners of their family for as long as she could remember. Her mother had lived with a ghost and, perhaps unknowingly, so had they all. She looked again at the dress. It wasn't just a garment. It was a monument to what was lost, or never had the chance to be. Downstairs, the old clock in the hallway struck 5. Its chime, muffled through floorboards, felt like a call from another life. Anna tucked the letters back into the box, then carried it down the stairs like she was cradling something fragile, something holy. In the kitchen, she set the box on the table and stared at the worn placemat where her mother used to drink her tea. Always alone, always at 7 a.m. Had she been waiting for someone else in those quiet moments? Had Anna ever really known her? The doorbell rang. The sound jolted her, sharp and unexpected. She wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she opened the front door. A man stood on the porch, older, late 50s maybe, kind eyes, nervous hands tucked into the pockets of a well-worn coat. Anna, he asked gently. She didn't answer. He smiled faintly. You look just like her. Anna's heart dropped. She didn't know his name, but somehow, in the marrow of her bones, she already knew who he was. Part 3. The man at the door. Anna's fingers tightened around the edge of the door, unsure whether to hold it open or close it entirely. The man on the porch didn't look dangerous. He looked haunted, as if he had been waiting decades for this moment and still wasn't sure he deserved it. I'm sorry, Anna said quietly. Do I know you? He shifted his weight, glanced at the flower beds her mother had once tended with quiet diligence. My name is Thomas. Thomas Ray. I knew your mother a long time ago. Anna nodded slowly. You're the one from the letters. He blinked, not with surprise, but with a kind of resigned acceptance. So she kept them. Anna stepped back. Do you want to come in? Thomas hesitated, then stepped inside like someone entering a chapel. His eyes moved gently across the foyer, landing briefly on the framed photo of Anna's parents on their wedding day, her mother in the same dress Anna had just found in the attic. That was the last time I saw her, he said, almost to himself. The day she married your father. Anna closed the door behind him. Why now? Why show up after all these years? Thomas took a deep breath. Because I didn't know she was gone until last week. A friend saw the obituary. I live in Maine. Now, I thought, he paused, I thought I had time. Anna led him to the kitchen, where the box of letters still sat on the table, a quiet accusation in yellowed paper. She wrote about you, Anna said. Not a lot, but enough. You were the man under the magnolia tree. Thomas's smile was pained. That tree was ours before we had anything else. Anna sat across from him. She said she chose my father. That she thought love could grow. Thomas looked down, and maybe it did for a while, but she and we never had the timing right, and then it became too late. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I wrote to her, too, he said. For years, even after I moved away, I never mailed this one. I wrote it on the day she got married. Anna hesitated before reaching for it. May I? He nodded. Inside was a single page, creased and yellowing. I won't come. You asked me not to, and I'll honor that, but I'll be standing under that tree, just once more. Just to say goodbye, even if you'll never know it. I hope you find the kind of love that keeps you warm in the silences. I hope he sees the way your eyes flicker when you're about to cry. I hope he never lets you forget you are the kind of woman who deserves to be chosen first. Anna folded the letter carefully and looked up. She never forgot you. Thomas's eyes filled. I didn't come to make anything worse. I just needed to stand on the porch again, to see the home she built, to see the life she chose. Anna sat in silence, the ache in her chest too old and too new at the same time. You can stay, she said after a while, just for tea. Thomas gave a quiet smile. She would have liked that, and so they sat strangers tied by a woman who had written more in silence than she ever dared say aloud. Outside, the magnolia tree trembled in the breeze, its leaves whispering secrets neither of them could quite hear. Part 4. The dust of what was never said. Thomas took his tea without sugar. He said it reminded him of his mother, strong, bitter, and impossible to sweeten. Anna didn't ask much more after that. She wasn't ready to know him yet, but she also wasn't ready to send him away. They sat in the small, sun-dappled kitchen. The silence between them wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was the kind of silence that belonged to people holding opposite corners of the same memory. Anna finally broke it. Did she love you? Thomas looked down into his mug. I think so, once. In the way you love someone when you're still soft, still unhurt. Anna nodded. And my father? Thomas hesitated. I don't know, but she tried. That much I believe. There was something gentle about the way he said it. No bitterness, no blame, just the ache of having been almost. Anna rose and opened the cupboard, pulling out a worn tin box. Inside were old photos, some curled at the edges, others barely holding onto color. She slid one across the table. Her mother, maybe 20, sitting on the porch steps with her face turned away from the camera but smiling, really smiling. Is this you? Anna asked, pointing to the young man beside her mother. His hand was barely brushing her elbow. Thomas took the photo carefully. Yes, that was the summer before she met your father. You look sure of her. He smiled faintly. I was, but she wasn't sure of herself yet, or of me. Anna's voice trembled. She never told me about you. Not with words. Thomas's eyes were kind. Some truths are too complicated to speak, and some silences are love, too. They sat like that for a while. Tea gone cold, time folding in on itself. A woman and the man who could have been her father in another version of the story. Eventually, Thomas stood. I should go. I didn't mean to stay this long. Anna followed him to the door. Will you come back? She asked, surprising herself. He looked at her, surprised too. Then he nodded. If you want me to. She did. After he left, Anna climbed the attic stairs again. The dress was still there, waiting like it always had, but now it felt heavier, as if the lace had absorbed everything that had been left unsaid. She didn't try it on, she just sat beside it, running her hand over the folded fabric, and wondered what kind of love lived in shadows and what kind still had a chance in the light. Part 5. Her letters in the floorboards that night. Anna couldn't sleep, not because of the man who had just stepped back into the quiet corners of her history, but because of her mother, her real mother, the one Anna now realized she had never fully known. The attic had become a pool, a strange comfort. She returned just after midnight, slippers whispering across the creaking stairs. The wedding dress still sat where she'd left it, draped in a beam of moonlight, like it was waiting for a bride who never quite arrived. Anna sat beside it. The floorboards were cool beneath her. She leaned back, staring at the wood grain above, then blinked. One plank was a shade lighter than the rest. Narrower, a little loose. Curious, she tugged at the edge. It shifted. With both hands. She pried it open. Inside, wrapped in soft cotton and bound with a pale blue ribbon, were 3 yellowing envelopes. Her heart clenched. They were addressed in her mother's handwriting. The curves were elegant but unsteady, like someone writing with too much emotion and not enough time. The top one simply said, "To my daughter, if you ever find this." Anna sat cross-legged and unfolded it, her hands trembling slightly. "Anna, if you're reading this, then I wasn't brave enough to tell you myself. I've rewritten these words so many times I don't know which version you're holding now. There was someone before your father. Someone I loved in the way a heart loves before it knows how easily it can be broken. I let him go because I was afraid of choosing wrong. And then I built a life out of what was expected. I want you to know this. Your life was never a mistake. You are my deepest, truest joy. But there were pieces of me that I hid maybe too well. I thought I was protecting you. If you ever find the others, if Thomas finds why, I hope you give him a chance. Not because I want to rewrite the past, but because I want you to understand the whole of who I was. Love, Mom." Anna folded the letter slowly, pressing it to her chest. She didn't cry. Not then. Instead, she opened the second letter and the third. Each one carried a different version of her mother: wistful, guilty, fierce, afraid. A woman trying to bottle truth into ink and leave it behind like breadcrumbs. By dawn, Anna sat in a ring of paper and soft light. Her legs were numb, but inside, something had started to thaw later. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, she stared out the window at the quiet street. The morning was pale and empty, but her heart was full of voices. She picked up her phone, paused, and then called Thomas. It rang only once. "Anna," he answered. "I found her letters," she said, her voice calm. "I think I want to know the rest of her story." There was a pause. "I'll come by tomorrow," he said, "if that's all right." She looked toward the attic. At the wedding dress no longer looked like a costume. It looked like part of a story she hadn't finished reading. "Yes," she whispered. "Please come." Part 6. The visit the next afternoon. The doorbell echoed through Anna's small apartment, stirring a quiet nervousness in her chest. She smoothed her hands over the faded floral dress she wore, the one she'd worn on the night she finally decided to answer the questions she had buried deep. When she opened the door, Thomas stood there, his eyes carrying a mix of hesitation and something softer like regret, waiting to be forgiven. They didn't speak at first. He stepped inside, careful not to disturb the fragile stillness that had settled over her space. Anna led him to the small living room, where the letters lay stacked on the coffee table like fragile bridges between past and present. Thomas sat down slowly. His fingers trembled as he reached for the first letter, his voice quiet. "I didn't know she wrote these." "I didn't either," Anna whispered. For a long moment, they read in silence, the room filled with the soft rustle of paper and the ghosts of memories. Then Thomas looked up. "She loved you fiercely," he said, eyes glistening. "More than I ever knew." Anna nodded. "And I think she wanted us to find each other, to understand." The afternoon sun spilled through the window, painting gold onto the worn pages. In that light, the past didn't feel so heavy anymore. Anna folded a letter gently. "Maybe it's time to tell the whole story," she said. Thomas smiled faintly. Together, as the sun dipped lower, their voices grew softer, weaving the broken pieces into a fragile tapestry of understanding. The wedding dress hung quietly in the corner, no longer a symbol of loss, but of beginnings. Part 7. Secrets between shadows. That night, Anna sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. The letters lay beside her, but her thoughts wandered to the man she barely knew, Thomas. His hesitations, his silences, they spoke volumes in the quiet between words. She traced the fabric of the wedding dress hanging in the closet, delicate lace, soft silk, a memory frozen in time. Why had she never asked him the questions that now felt urgent, necessary? Why had their story been left in the shadows? A soft knock startled her. It was Thomas, holding a small box, worn leather, tied with a faded ribbon. "I found this," he said softly among her things. Anna took the box, fingers trembling. Inside were photographs, moments frozen, a young woman laughing, a baby's first steps, a late-night candle at dinner, and a letter, worn at the edges. They read it together, voices low and trembling. "I wanted you both to know the truth, the mistakes, the love, the regrets. I never meant to leave you in the dark." Tears blurred Anna's vision. Thomas took her hand, steadying, grounding. "We don't have to carry this alone anymore." Outside, the night whispered promises. Inside, 2 broken hearts began to beat in quiet harmony. Part 8. The fragile truth. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains as Anna and Thomas sat across from each other at the small kitchen table. The photographs lay spread between them like a delicate mosaic of a life, half known. Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. "Why didn't she tell us sooner?" Thomas sighed, his fingers tracing the worn edges of a faded picture. She was scared, afraid of what would happen if the past came to light. Anna swallowed hard, but keeping it hidden, it tore us apart. They sat in silence for a moment. the weight of years pressing gently on their shoulders. Then Thomas reached for Anna's hand. We can't change what was, but maybe we can choose what comes next. Anna nodded, a fragile hope blooming within her. Outside, the world moved forward, but here, in this quiet kitchen, healing had begun. The wedding dress hung in the bedroom, no longer a ghost, but a symbol of resilience and the possibility of forgiveness. Together, they would write the next chapter. Part 9. Echoes in the hallway. The old house felt both familiar and strange as Anna wandered its quiet hallways. Each step stirred echoes, whispers of laughter, sighs of sorrow, fragments of a life she thought she knew. She paused before the bedroom door, fingers brushing the frame. Inside, the wedding dress hung softly, catching the morning light like a fragile promise. Thomas joined her, voice gentle. There's more here than we ever imagined. Together, they opened a forgotten drawer, revealing a stack of journals. Worn but carefully preserved. Anna traced the words written in a delicate script, confessions of hope, fear and love tangled in the threads of memory. As they read, the walls seemed to breathe with the weight of unspoken truths. Each page peeled back another layer of silence, revealing the woman behind the dress, a soul yearning to be understood. Tears fell quietly as the past and present entwined. In that moment, Anna realized healing wasn't about forgetting but embracing all the pieces, even the broken ones. Part 10. The unseen letter. Days later, Anna found herself sifting through an old box in the attic, dust motes dancing in the fading light among yellowed photographs and brittle lace. She uncovered a sealed envelope untouched by time. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal, unfolding a letter written in a familiar, flowing hand. The words spilled like a whispered confession. If you're reading this, my loves, know that my heart has carried secrets heavier than I could bear. I hoped my silence would protect you, but it only built walls between us. Please forgive me. Find each other again. Anna's breath caught, the weight of forgiveness settling softly over her. Thomas appeared behind her, eyes shimmering. We've been given a chance, a way to mend what was broken. Together, they folded the letter carefully, holding on to the fragile thread of hope it offered. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in warm hues. Inside, two hearts prepared to face the dawn, no longer haunted by the shadows of the past, but embracing the fragile light of new beginnings. Part 11. Quiet confessions. Evening settled softly over the house as Anna and Thomas sat side by side on the faded couch, the letter resting between them like a bridge across years of silence. Anna's voice was gentle, almost hesitant. I never understood why she stayed silent for so long. I thought it was anger or disappointment. Thomas shook his head slowly. Wasn't hate, it was fear. Fear of losing us, even as she felt herself slipping away. They looked out the window, watching the first stars emerge. I wish we had talked sooner, Anna whispered. Thomas squeezed her hand. We can't rewrite the past, but we can hold on to this moment, the truth, at last. The house seemed to breathe with relief, the weight of old secrets lifting in the quiet that followed. Forgiveness began to weave its soft, steady thread through the fractured pieces of their hearts. Together they began to imagine a future where the woman in the wedding dress was no longer a ghost, but a part of their story, healing, whole, and free. Part 12. The forgotten melody. In the corner of the living room, an old music box sat covered in dust, its delicate engravings faded but still beautiful. Anna's fingers brushed over it, and with a tentative twist, the box began to play. A soft, haunting melody, one that seemed to carry the weight of years and memories, long buried. The notes floated through the air, filling the room with a bittersweet warmth. Thomas closed his eyes, as if transported back to a moment when laughter and love had filled this very space. Anna whispered, I never knew this song, but somehow it feels like a lullaby for all the broken pieces. The music wove around them, a tender reminder that even in silence and absence, love can linger, waiting patiently to be found again. They sat together, listening, letting the melody gently unravel the knots of grief and regret, weaving instead a fragile tapestry of hope. Outside, the world moved quietly on, but inside, healing had found its voice, soft, slow, and unyielding. Part 13. Shadows. On the photograph now held an old photograph, edges curled, the image faded but alive with memories. A wedding day long ago, a moment frozen, yet shadowed by things unsaid. She traced the outline of the woman in the dress, her mother's gentle smile both comforting and distant. Thomas stood behind her, voice soft. Sometimes pictures show us what words cannot, the silent fears, the hopes that didn't speak loud enough. Anna swallowed the lump in her throat. I always thought the dress was just fabric and lace. Now, it feels like a symbol of what she carried alone. They placed the photo on the mantel, a quiet tribute to love's complexity, its fragility. As evening deepened, the house seemed to hum with a gentle acceptance, a slow turning toward peace. They knew the final chapters were still unwritten, but for the first time, the story felt theirs to tell. Part 14. A door left open. The late afternoon light spilled through the half-open door, casting long shadows across the hallway. Anna lingered there, fingers resting lightly on the cool wood. The hesitation of years held in that small gesture. Thomas approached quietly, his presence steady and warm. We can choose to close the door, he said softly, or leave it open for healing, for new beginnings. Anna nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I'm ready to leave it open. Together they stepped inside, letting the light wash over the walls and memories alike, in that space between past and future. Forgiveness took root, fragile but fierce, and in the stillness, they felt the woman in the wedding dress not as a shadow, but as a part of their own unfolding story. Part 15. The quiet bloomed. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, touching everything with a gentle glow. That Anna stood before the mirror, her hands resting lightly on the dresser, the wedding dress carefully folded nearby, no longer a symbol of pain, but one of grace and remembrance. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of years lift just enough to let a fragile hope bloom. Thomas joined her, their eyes meeting in a quiet understanding, the unspoken promise of moving forward. Together, the past was not forgotten, but it no longer held them captive. Instead, it had shaped them into something resilient, something tender. And as the world outside woke to a new day, inside, a heart that had once been closed opened slowly, beautifully, like a quiet bloom in early spring. The morning light softened, spilling like a gentle sigh through the curtains, touching the quiet corners of the room, where memories lingered softly, like a slow, fading melody. The air was calm, still carrying whispers of the past, but wrapped now in a delicate hush, as if the world itself was exhaling, releasing long-held breath. Outside, the trees swayed with the gentlest rhythm, leaves murmuring secrets to the wind, carrying them away beyond sight, beyond time. Inside, hearts once heavy began to float lightly, settling into the peaceful folds of now, where pain and hope intertwined like a quiet dance. The wedding dress lay folded, resting peacefully, a silent witness to stories told and untold, of love lost and found again, in the softest corners of the soul. And in that stillness, there was a warmth, a fragile, glowing light, as tender as a whispered lullaby, inviting sleep to come close, to cradle every thought and worry into a gentle dream. So let your mind drift slowly, gently, like a leaf on a calm stream, carried by currents of quiet and calm. Allow yourself the grace of rest, the comfort of a new beginning, soft and slow. And when your eyelids close, may peace find you, wrapping you like a tender embrace, holding you safe until morning's light. Sleep well, dream sweetly,